best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does on this Tuesday. And great to have you with us all across America and Canada. For the next 60 minutes, we got a lot to talk about. Got a lot of problems with you people. We'll be joined by our friend Patrick Creighton from Sports Radio 610 in Houston. That city on fire right now. They just got Kevin Durant. Astros playing great baseball, some of the best baseball in the bigs. We'll talk to him about those two teams. Who knows, maybe a couple other things will pop up along the way, so we'll do that coming up. Heartache at Wimbledon. I was watching it as it happened yesterday, and we got to get into that, which we will coming up a little later on. But we start things out in the NFL, Sam Yarnell? How are we? We're talking about the NFL on July 8th, and somebody didn't get arrested? Wow. I mean, I'm flummoxed. So let's talk about it. I mean, Kirk Cousins comes out. The new season of this quarterback show they have on Netflix has come out on Tuesday, and it chronicles Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins, and goes along with them on the season. And the first big bombshell, jang, 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 is Kirk Cousins revealing that he felt misled.
Mooney moving.
That he felt betrayed by, in some way, it feels. Misled was the word he used. I'll use the word betrayed. By what the Falcons did in drafting Michael Penix. And look, here's what I'll say to all of it. And he did say, look, it still comes down to this is the way the league operates. He did throw that caveat in, but essentially said, Sam, if I had known then what I know now, I would have stayed in Minnesota. Well, he's getting paid handsomely. And the fact of the matter is, if Kirk Cousins just plays better, none of this matters at the end of the day. So, I said at the end of the day, I should have to put $1 in the jar. But, so to me, I don't really feel any sympathy for Kirk Cousins. I know a lot of people are trying to say he's always come off good, looking good in this show and all of that, but I think it's sour grapes to sit there and whine about them drafting Michael Penix. The organization has a responsibility to have a backup plan in case you sucked, which you did.
Yeah, so full transparency, I haven't watched the new season of Quarterback beginning to end. Quite frankly, there's not enough time between when it came out this morning and when Jason and I are taping the show, even if I watched it right the second it came out all the way up until now. So I'll have a better idea of or maybe a better understanding or better contextualization of it after watching the entirety of the season. I'll say this, I think that Kirk Cousins is saying like the quiet part out loud, which is fine. And yeah, of course, there is obviously going to be a mental and emotional toll that's going through something like that will take on any human being, whether like even if it happened to Patrick Mahomes, like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, even if it happened to Lamar Jackson, even if it happened to Josh Allen, right? There would be a mental, emotional toll that it takes on the human being. It's just how brains were designed to operate. I'll say this though, there are 100 million reasons why Kirk Cousins shouldn't be upset. As you kind of alluded to, $100 million guaranteed at signing. Yeah, go ahead and draft another quarterback. What do I care as a 36-year-old I guess 35 years old at the time, quarterback. What do I care? You're going to give me $100 million regardless. And especially right in the context of Kirk Cousins, a guy who just always seems to get paid as much as he possibly can. I think that there's a little bit of solace that you, the player, have to find in that, and a little bit of, hey, yeah, they may have won the battle, but I won the war. They're paying me, 9 figures, right? They're not paying Michael Penix 9 figures. They're not paying anybody else on the team 9 figures.
I will defend him in this way, though. It does show that the guy's a competitor and he wants to be out there playing, that he wants to compete, that he isn't just out there for the paycheck, that he isn't just out there trying to get paid and get his bag, that the guy has that competitive spirit and fire in him. If there's, again, maybe a little devil's advocate on my part, but maybe if there is another side to it, that is it.
I think that throughout Kirk Cousins' entire career, right, and this is getting very circumstantial or situational at this point, but like throughout Kirk Cousins' entire career, for a long period of time, he was just kind of an afterthought, right? Drafted in the 4th round, second quarterback Washington took in that draft, only really got the shot to even start or get meaningful playing time because of the injury that Robert Griffin III suffers, and then obviously takes the reins in that franchise, leads them to the playoffs, signs the huge deal in Minnesota, and the rest is history. But I think that, that early portion of Kirk Cousins' career is a real teaching moment for like this period in time in Kirk Cousins' career, because he's found himself on the complete opposite end of it. He's found himself as the quarterback that was brought in by the organization with all the hopes in the world to lead them back to copious amounts of success. And then all of a sudden, a guy they drafted after he was on the team came in and took his position over. I know it's a little bit different, but you've got to see the similarity there. I'm not sure Kirk Cousins sees the similarity there. And if he were to maybe realize that a little bit more, there could be a little bit of mental, emotional growth that could happen throughout this season.
I wonder. Now, as you were talking, I was thinking about this. Not that I wasn't listening to you, because I was, but I was wondering: is he going to start? Where could he wind up being? Where could he wind up starting this year? Like, where is the fit? If there is still one for him out there. And maybe the Falcons have actually played this pretty wisely, in that if Penix really struggles, you could always go back to him. And the other area is, if somebody loses a quarterback in training camp, somebody loses a quarterback during preseason, you've got somebody who's sitting there who wants to go start somewhere, who is still capable enough that he can win you some football games and at least keep you relevant. And who knows, depending on the team, maybe even do more than that. If it's a team that really, is in the mix for things, maybe there is a fit out there for Kirk Cousins in the last 30 seconds. Where is that fit?
The 3 teams that came to mind, though, when you said that originally, is the 3 dumpster fire teams of the NFL. Ugh. The Browns, the Giants, and the Jets. Those are like the 3 easiest landing spots for me. And if I'm Kirk Cousins, I don't want to spend the latter days of my career there.
Yeah. I don't think it's the Browns. I don't think it's the Jets or the Giants. I don't think it's the
Why
Jets
would he
or the
want
Giants.
to?
I could see Cleveland. But they got so many quarterbacks. We're coming back. All right, we keep things moving on this Tuesday edition of the show. Coming up in 10 minutes, Patrick Creighton from Area 45 on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. Friend of the show, friend of mine. Talk to him about a city on fire right now in a good way. They got Kevin Durant, and the Astros are just tearing it up right now. Sam Yarnell, something I would have talked about yesterday, but we had so much coming off the weekend. All-Star Game snubs. Something, and we kind of touched on a little bit last week when we had our friend David Ardsma hanging out with us on the show. And there are plenty to go around if we're looking around baseball. So I ask you, Sam Yarnell, your most notable 2 or 3 offhand All-Star Game snubs. Go.
Yeah, the 2 that come to mind are 2 who unfortunately used to be in Nationals uniforms and now find themselves in other places in the Nationals division. It's Trey Turner at shortstop, and it's Juan Soto in the outfield for me. I'll start with the Turner thing. Go look at the numbers. They speak for themselves. Among NL shortstops, it's the James Wood thing, right? He's first in basically every major offensive category, yet somehow a couple of defensive mishaps throughout the season made people want to vote for Francisco Lindor over him. Don't get me wrong, Francisco Lindor is a great shortstop, but is he better than Trey Turner? No, and in my mind, it's not particularly close. Value, different conversation, right? Lindor, the switch hitter. Obviously, that's where you can bring in defensive, but better, I got a hard time believing that. Trey Turner's my big all-star snub. The Juan Soto thing, I mean, again, go look at the guy's, oh gosh, I'm messing with my set here, Jason. But go look at the guy's StatCast page. This is a guy, and this is something that we're going to have to get into over the course of the next couple of months, but I don't think I could be more out on this Pete Crow Armstrong guy.
Wow.
I know that the numbers are incredible. I'm telling you this right now. This is a guy who has horrible peripheral stats, like legit peripheral stats reminiscent of a gadget outfielder. And down the stretch, I don't think it's realistic to expect to see him hitting at a higher average than like 260 this year. So Pete Crow Armstrong, big flash in the pan candidate for me, big sell high candidate for me. I think Juan Soto should have made the All-Star game over Pete Crow Armstrong. I think a lot of people fawn over this guy's defense, but when you look at the analytics, he just has really good sprint speed. He actually takes really bad routes to balls and gets bad breaks on balls. And he's got a strong arm. So, again, I think that Soto and Turner, to me, were no-brainer all-stars, and not seeing them in Atlanta is going to be slightly jaw-dropping to me.
I'll give you Michael Busch from the Cubs. Michael Busch, really, I mean, he's got an OPS of just under 1,000. He's at 297 with 18 home runs on a Cubs team that's obviously done a lot of great things. I'll go Michael Busch. I'll give you another one. Joe Adell. I know the average isn't that high, but where is that team right now without Joe Adell? And here's the thing on Joe Adell. Angels fans love to bang on Joe Adell. He's almost like their Anthony Volpe. They love banging. They love to bang on every little thing. Oh, he doesn't play defense that great, all of this. That team would be a dumpster fire right now if not for the offensive production of Joe Adell. And here's the thing. Over the first couple of years in the league for him, he has not gotten consistent at bats. He's been the guy that you've plugged in when Mike Trout gets hurt or when somebody else gets hurt. And then when you find somebody else you want to replace him with, he goes back down to AAA or he sits on the bench and he gets at bats every 4 days. But Joe Adell's showing you with consistent at bats, he consistently produces offense. I mean, he's at 19 and I think 52? Yeah, 19 home runs, 52 RBI on the season for Joe Adell. I have been very impressed with what he's done over a full season. Another one, George Springer. Now, I know a lot of the numbers came in the last, 10 days, it feels like, especially against the Yankees. But George Springer's had a nice first half, too. 276, 16 home runs on the year for George Springer. Back to the George Springer he was.
For a Blue Jays team that has come to life in the last 2 weeks, right? And he has massively been at the forefront of it, especially when we had questions going into the season about if he'd be playing every day. I think those are three great names in terms of all-star snubs. I'll say on the Springer thing and the Busch thing, I think that they're both deserving all-stars. The reason the public, and we got to change this fan voting system, but the reason the public didn't put them in is because they each missed 10, 15 games at the beginning of the season. So now we're going to still hold that against them. The Joe Adell thing, you're exactly right, Jason. The offensive production this year has been incredible. I will say this, though. I do, to an extent, feel for Angels fans and understand their constant frustrations with a guy who the organization used a top 10 pick on back in the day, and he really looked for a long time like he was not going to pan out. So it has been great to see what Joe Adell has done this year. I understand why the Angels fans were skeptical, optimistic at times, but I'm with you. I think the consistent at-bats are a huge deal. He's here to stay, and he's finally showing you the talent that they drafted him with that 10th overall pick at.
Yeah, I'm glad he's here to stay. Framber Valdez, we can talk about him when we have our friend Patrick Creighton on the show. 2.90 ERA. on this Astros team. Ranger Suarez, of course. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We could talk about that all day. As our friend David Ardsma last week predicted, he would win the Cy, or he said he would be his Cy Young Award winner if we were doing it for the National League. Kodai Senga has had a nice first half, for the Mets, obviously. Nathan Eovaldi, the innings count there is a little low, but a 1.75 ERA, a WHIP of 0.85. Sam, go ahead. You had a real quick.
They put Jeremy Pena on the All-Star team, right? If they didn't put Jeremy Pena, because I know Jacob Wilson's going to be the starter for the American League at shortstop, but if Jeremy Pena is not on that American League All-Star team,
Pena's on it. Pena's on it.
All right.
That Pena situation is interesting.
Starting.
That Pena situation's interesting in Houston. I'm going to talk about it with Patrick too, because he became a Scott Boras client, and all of a sudden, Boras and the organization aren't talking to the Astros. They were having conversations about a contract extension. Now all of a sudden, nobody's talking. Boras came in and it was like, it's a wrap. We're going to wait and get our money. So, could be some interesting times ahead when it comes to Jeremy Pena and his relationship with that organization. All right, we're coming back. We'll do some baseball and some basketball with Patrick Creighton. Sam comes back later in the show. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap. Been a while since I talked to this guy, and that's my fault because I just haven't called. It's on me, Patrick Creighton.
What's up, Jay? How you doing, man?
Area 45, Sports Radio 610 in Houston. Does a great job down there. Gives us a few minutes. I thought it was a good day to talk about Houston because that's a city on fire in a couple of regards right now in a good way. One being the Astros, the other being the Rockets. So I thought I'd spend a few minutes with you talking about both as somebody who is in the belly of the beast there. And start with the Astros, who we were just talking about a little bit in the last segment with a couple of guys. One in particular that we were talking about that you could consider an all-star snub in Framber Valdez. But talking about the team in general, and don't tell me you were the guy that saw this coming, that this team was going to be 20 games over 500 or whatever the hell they are on July 8th. I don't, especially when you consider Yordan Alvarez is still dealing with an injury. How are they doing it?
So I can pull you the air check from June 3rd if you want to hear that I was the guy who told you that they were going to be 20 over because their schedule for June was super soft. And they had played through the beginning of June. They played the most difficult schedule in all of baseball. They only played 15 games against teams that did not have winning records. So they played an incredibly difficult schedule early on. And then they got a much softer schedule in the month of June where they beat up on a lot of bad teams. But by the time the end of the month came around, and they had to play the Phillies, and they had to play the Cubs, and they had to play the Dodgers, their confidence has gotten so high, they smashed the snot out of those teams. They went 8-1 against the Phillies, Cubs, and Dodgers. They swept the Dodgers in L.A. for the first time since 2008. And this is a team that is starting 3 to 4 minor leaguers a day. They have so much confidence right now. They don't care who's playing. Their expectation is we play today, we win today. And it exudes from their manager. Joe Espada should hands down be the front runner for AL Manager of the Year. Not that A.J. Hinch is not doing a tremendous job in Detroit. He is. But look at what the Astros have overcome. They have an entire starting rotation on IL. Their best hitter played a month of the season with an injured hand and has missed the season since then. Oh, and now they're Jeremy Pena, the guy who at the time had the second highest WAR in all of baseball. Now he is down, and I would expect we will probably not see him until after the break because we all know if the Astros say, hey, it's just going to be a few days, it's probably 6 weeks.
Talk about Hunter Brown, too, because we've talked about him a lot on this show and sort of what he's meant to that team and to that rotation. You talk again, talking about all the injuries this team has sustained. Who saw this coming?
The Astros have two aces and a bunch of refugees in their rotation right now, right? I mean, it's Hunter and Fromber, and then it has been occasionally working back to form Lance McCullers Jr. But for the most part, it has been rookies and guys they pulled off the waiver wire, or refugees, as we call them in baseball. So they really have, it's amazing what they've done. And for Hunter Brown, who looks every bit like the guy who should be in the lead for AL Cy Young, all respects to Tark Skubal, who is also a phenomenal pitcher and apparently does not believe in walking anyone. Hunter Brown has the best ERA in the American League. In fact, I think he has the best ERA in baseball. His ERA is 182, which, after 3 starts, 4 starts, it's after 17 starts. Like,
it's amazing.
You look at what he did really from, say, the end of May last year going forward, and it is carried over to this year. He might actually be better this year, and he's going to go for his 10th win tonight against Cleveland. He has been their stopper. They are 13-4 when he starts.
Go back to Jeremy Pena for a second here. He was talking with the organization on a contract extension, brings in a new agent in Scott Boras, and now you're kind of left wondering, because there hasn't been a lot of communication since Boras came in and took over as his agent, from what I understand. What's going on there? Is this just Boras being Boras and playing hardball? Are they going to be able to get something worked out that keeps him there long term?
Whether you like Boras or you don't like Boras, the reason Scott Boras has every high-end client is because the higher end the client, the more he wins. And even when you say, oh, well, he lost this one or he lost that one. Well, there's 500 that he won that go against that one loss. He's the best in the business for a reason. And usually if you're a fan of a team and you see a client has Scott Boras for an agent, you hem and you haw and oh, geez, what's good? Because you know what Scott Boras is about. He's going to leverage that as hard as he can. The fact that they were talking to Pena about, let's be honest, that was going to be a super low ball deal. I mean, if he was going to take the deal that they offered him, that was a home run for the Astros. And, now he has the same agent as Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman. So it's a smart move by Pena, who, look, he was an older player when he came up. He was like 25 when he came up. This is his one shot at the bag. So I totally understand that he wants to get that. Look, it's generational, life-altering money, and I will never begrudge a player for wanting to get all the money he can. They absolutely should.
But are the Astros the kind of organization that are going to give him that Boras kind of money?
No,
because they're not. That's my feeling is they're not.
They're never going to be. They weren't going to pay Bragg. Look, think about it. They didn't pay Garrett Cole.
So he's getting traded at some point is what you're telling me.
Maybe. They've only traded Kyle Tucker. Everybody else, whether it was Cole, whether it was Springer, whether it was Correa, whether it was Bregman, they've let those guys play their contracts out because they're playing to win. If the Astros are still playing to win, they won't trade him. They'll play out his contract, and they'll take that pick at the end of the second round, at the end of the fourth round, depending on what their team salary status is. But they've done this in the past, and it's because they want to take their shot at winning. Pena has, more arbitration years left, but if he's looking to get that, 8-year deal at $30+ million per, it's not going to be in Houston. It's just that's not their philosophy. Houston is much more almost like an NCAA football team, right? They graduate and then you replace them. And that's kind of how they've operated. And this season is underlying that works for them.
It's exactly what I was going to say. They have enough of a track record of being able to bring up the next guy and be able to and still be able to win. We're going to hold on to Patrick Creighton. I want to talk to him about the Rockets. They made a bit of a splash in free agency in the offseason. Coming up in 10 minutes, heartache at Wimbledon. Was it more heartache? We're going to compare heartaches. More heartache than what we saw during the NBA playoffs? Talk about it. We're just going to compare heartaches, Patrick Creighton. What do you think?
So now we're going to talk about me being a Med fan.
We're just gonna compare heartaches. No, Grigor Dimitrov losing up 2-0 on the arguably the best player in the world in Jannik Sinner versus Tyrese Haliburton versus Jason Tatum, Damian Lillard, guys who get hurt in the playoffs. We're gonna compare them all because that's what we do.
So my Knicks fandom or my Islanders fandom? Which one are we trying to pull the scabs off?
The Islanders are just terrible. The Knicks is a little bit more appropriate. The Islanders. I mean, they've been a
Jason,
dumpster fire.
I just turned 52,
and only a few years older. You only got a few years on me.
The Knicks haven't won a title since the month before I was born.
I get it, dude. I see John Starks in my sleep. Clang over and over again. By the way, happy for our guy Don LaGreca, who just got the Devils play-by-play job. For those that didn't know, a little inside baseball. Don LaGreca, who's a long-time broadcaster in the New York tri-state area, just got the play-by-play job for the New Jersey Devils. Very happy for him.
Hard-working dude. Very happy for him.
He is one of the really good guys in our industry. I love him. I don't know how he suffered through Michael Kay all those years, but love Don LaGreca.
Yeah, there's a nice paycheck that helped with that.
I guess so. All right, let's talk about the Rockets here for a few minutes because they go out and make the big splash of this offseason so far, trading for Kevin Durant. And I made the argument yesterday on the show, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. I feel like the window here is 1 year with Durant, and I say it for this reason. Everywhere he's gone, if it hasn't happened in the first year, it doesn't seem to happen. And he's going to be 37 when the next NBA season begins. So then after that, you're talking 38. Granted, he's in pretty good shape for his age, so he could play a couple more years. But it always feels like if it doesn't go right the first year with Kevin Durant, the finger pointing begins, and you start counting the days until he gets traded again. I feel like it has to happen in year one with him and the Rockets. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay, so I totally understand why you feel that way. Because when he went to Brooklyn, they gave up, they didn't give up a ton of assets to get him because he had ruptured Achilles, but they gave up a ton of assets to get James Harden. And that stripped the team of all the young players that made them a desirable location for him. And it also stripped them of all their draft picks. So that first year, when Harden gets hurt in the playoffs against Milwaukee, and then Kyrie gets hurt in the playoffs against Milwaukee, it's Kevin Durant going 7 games against the eventual champs, and James Harden playing the last 2 games on one leg. And nobody else because they had to get rid of all those guys.
Yep.
And then the next year, KD gets hurt again. Kyrie and Harden can't coexist. Harden shipped out of town, and it's over. When he went to Phoenix, that first year in Phoenix, they gave up a lot to get him, but then they gave up more to get Bradley Beal and stripped the team of all their young assets and all their draft picks, so they had one shot. That's why it's failed. The Rockets didn't give up all their young assets. They gave up one guy who demonstrated in the postseason he was afraid to shoot the basketball. So as much as I hope Jalen Green goes on to have a really good career, it wasn't going to happen in Houston. And Kevin Durant is now coming to a team loaded with young talent and has a bunch of draft picks. So to me, the window really can be as long as KD is playing at an elite level. It could be 2 years. It could be 3 years. We have no idea how long that window really is because we don't know how long KD can continue to be the guy who defies time now at 37 and still playing at an all-star level. But as long as he is a walking bucket, that window is open for this team because they've got so much young talent in Alpi Şengün, in Amen Thompson, in Reed Thompson, Reed Shepard, in Tari Eason, like the Jabari Smith Jr. They've got so many great young players that if KD can stay relatively healthy, meaning I'm going to give him 30 games a year off and just be healthy in April. If he can do that, they are a legitimate contending team for as long as he's healthy in April.
How does Ime Udoka's style work with somebody like him? Because if you look at what he coached in Boston with the Celtics, you can say, well, he's coached stars before. Yeah, but those were still young stars who were itching to win a title, who were hungry to win a title. How does that style work with somebody like Durant? Does he just let Durant be Durant and just coach the rest of the team? Like, how does he handle that?
I think it's going to be interesting. Right now, Ime and KD, they have a relationship from when they were in Brooklyn together. And Durant loves Ime Udoka. That's important because if KD is not on board with the coach, yeah, it's very likely he's going to be like, look, I'm going to do my thing and everybody else just shut up and do what I want. But he's bought in because he actually respects the head coach and the head coach loves him. So that is really important aspect of this relationship. The biggest issue for the Rockets last year was they couldn't shoot. They went out and got arguably the best shooting player in the NBA, not named Steph Curry. So they got a guy who, you know, is the king of the mid-range, is still an excellent three-point shooter, is basically undefendable because he's 6'11" as a small forward. He can shoot over anybody. And believe it or not, you know, the guy who had the number one defensive rating in one-on-one on-ball situations was Amen Thompson. Number 2 is Kevin Durant. Now, I didn't watch enough Phoenix Suns games to know whether or not they were moving him on to lesser offensive players or whatnot. So I don't know how fully accurate that is, but it's a hell of a number. And you know KD's got like a 7'5" wingspan. Yeah. So he's a pain in the neck to deal with defensively. If he's okay defensively and he's KD on offense, that team is totally transformed offensively.
Patrick Creighton does a great job. Area 45, Sports Radio 610. My friend, it's good to talk to you. Let's do it again soon. All right, Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. Everything we ran out of time to get to. Coming up, heartache. We touched on it in the last segment with our friend Patrick Creighton. Does a great job at Sports Radio 610 in Houston. I got to hang out with him. This must have been just like 7 or 8 years ago. I did a 3-day like a trial run. They were trying me out in Houston for a local, for a nationally syndicated show, but it was based in Houston. And I got to work with him for a few days. Great guy. But it was the only time in my life I ever spent in Houston. 3 days in Houston. That was it. I love folks down there. Glad you guys watch and all of that, but man, that place is like pea soup. You're just sweating all the time because it's humid. It's like 100. It's like, oh man. You ever been to Houston, Sam?
I have not.
I'll save you the trouble. I've done it for you. It's not made for people like you and me, guys who are a little not thin, not fat, but a little heavier, a little bulkier. You just sweat. All you do is sweat. So unless you like to sweat, you don't go to Houston. So that's all you do is sweat. That's it. That's what I get. A blank stare. That's what I get.
Yeah.
Dynamite drop in, Monty.
Seems like Florida-esque, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. If you've been to Florida, you've probably been to Houston. All right. I was absolutely crushed watching Grigor Dimitrov yesterday against Jannik Sinner because Dimitrov had this thing in the bag. He's up 2-0 on Dimitrov. And it's 2-2 in the third set. And Dimitrov's playing the match of his life. Now, mind you, this is a guy that in the 4 previous Grand Slam events had to pull out because of an injury. And it happened again yesterday. Looked like a pec injury. Who knows how bad it was. But he obviously couldn't continue, and he knew it right away. And Sinner moves on as a result. And not only does he move on, he moves on in less than straight sets because it didn't even go through. So he winds up losing the first 2 sets. It's basically like winning in less than straight sets because he only played those 2 sets. And he goes through to the next round. So he catches an enormous break. He will get Ben Shelton in that next round, who's playing really well in this tournament. And I'd love to see Shelton pull off an upset in that match. But I wanted to get your thoughts, Sam. We just watched, I mean, it was heartbreaking. And watching the outpouring of support around the sports world for Dimitrov after this happened, from our friend Patrick McEnroe all the way down the line. I mean, John McEnroe was crushed. Everybody watching, Chris Fowler, everybody was just crushed. and comparing it to what we saw in the NBA playoffs with Jason Tatum, with Tyrese Haliburton, and what took place with him during the NBA Finals, even Damian Lillard, who was lost during the playoffs with an Achilles injury. And comparing all of them, and I was trying to sit there and say, wow, which heartache, what one hurts the most? And I'll still fall back to individual sports because, again, you don't have a team to rely on. You don't have, it's just you. Like, you eat what you kill. And you lose out on the money, you lose out on the points, you lose out on the opportunity. To me, it's Dimitrov, but I know people can make an argument for all of them as being just crushing.
Yeah, so this was an interesting moment. I feel like there have been a lot of upsets in this Wimbledon so far, more than normal, and obviously we're on our way to another one there on Monday. I don't know, man. It was like I don't think that this is of the same magnitude as like the Lillard or the Haliburton or Tatum injuries, just because like those guys are gonna miss 12 to 18 months kind of automatically. Dimitrov, like, and obviously pec injuries in tennis are very, very finicky. But
if
Dimitrov,
it's a torn pec, he'll be out a while.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I don't know, man. I get that it's the individual sport. Grigor Dimitrov doesn't carry the same weight that Tyrese Haliburton does or Dame Lillard. And I know the individualism.
Dimitrov's a top 20 player. I mean, what's Haliburton? A top 10, top 15 player? I mean, it's not.
But a top 15 player in the NBA is inherently more valuable than a top 15 player in tennis because top 15 players in the NBA win championships, quite frankly, more frequently than top 15 players outside of top 5 players do in tennis.
That's fair.
Right? In tennis, you have like 3 guys and 3 women who can win like every Grand Slam every year. And if it's anyone outside of those 3 guys or women any year, it's a big surprise. So it was heartbreaking. And like, I thought that one of the most interesting things about the whole development was actually Jannik Sinner. He, as robotic as we call him, when we analyze him in tennis.
Go ahead, this is a great point.
As much as this guy is just there to hit the ball over the net and win the match against you, he showed so much emotion yesterday when it happened because he knew. I mean, he even said it on the court in the interview after the match. He knew he was cooked. He knew this was the end for him, and he got a lucky break. I think that as much as, this is career-altering for Grigor Dimitrov, who's in the not later stages of his career, but further along in his career than Jannik Sinner is, this is a growing moment for Jannik Sinner. This is a moment that Jannik Sinner is going to look back at for the rest of his career. But objectively very sad, Jason.
Yeah, it is. I really feel for Dimitrov in that spot. Rooting for Ben Shelton. Nothing against Sinner. I'd just love to see Shelton break through. This is going to be his opportunity. Yeah, he is. We're going to wrap it up with odds and ends next. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Tomorrow on the show, Kurt Heelan of Pro Basketball Talk at NBCSports.com. Do some NBA with him. Maybe some other surprises. You never know. A couple of reminders. If you have not done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast. The audio version of this show, same exact show, just audio only. If you're driving, on a plane, train, if you're on the treadmill, in the shower, laying in bed, no matter where you are, you can listen to us. Subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon. It's Prime Days. Go and subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast today. Now, in addition to being on over 220 affiliates around the country, where you can watch us in the U.S. and Canada, for that matter. You can also watch this show every day, commercial-free, on Spotify and on our YouTube channel, the Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, available of course, on YouTube. If you have not subscribed yet, go and do so. It is free. We also have SportsWrap shorts there, clips from the show, sometimes clips not from the show. Anything you want from this program available daily on our SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed yet, please make it a point to go and do so. All right, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, and certainly not the end, but the beginning of a bright future in Orlando for the Magic. Now, I like to say that they're sort of doing it in a similar way to what the Oklahoma City Thunder have done. Now, granted, the process is taking a bit longer, but the Orlando Magic just continue to put together a roster that is going to be very difficult to deal with in the Eastern Conference for years to come. They go and sign Paolo Banchero to a 6-year, they basically have him locked up for the next 6 years at $302 million. It's a 5-year deal for $230 million with incentives that can reach like $270. Ultimately, they've got him locked up for the next 6 years at $302 million. They have Franz Wagner also locked up, 5 years, $224 million. Jalen Suggs for the next 5 years, $151 million. Desmond Bane, who they just traded for at 4 years, $163 million. Wendell Carter Jr., 4 years, $70 million. Jace Richardson, a rookie there, 4 years, $15 million. I mean, their future is all locked up. They have done it the right way. And now you fill in the blanks with some veteran leadership and continue to just add around these guys. Orlando is going to be very difficult to deal with in the Eastern Conference for many years to come. And Paolo Banchero is certainly the centerpiece of that. He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Unfortunately, and we mentioned it a little bit in the last segment, talking about the crushing injuries to guys in this NBA postseason, whether it's Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, and then the ultimate with Tyrese Haliburton suffering the torn Achilles in the NBA Finals. Well, the Pacers have made it official. Tyrese Haliburton's not going to play in the 2025-2026 season. You're not going to see him, which means basically the Pacers are not a finals contender for next year. And that's why I continue to go back to this decision by the organization to play him. And I know people will say, you got to go for the championship when you have the opportunity. But now you've lost him for an entire year. All that momentum you have going forward as an organization is stunted. This year is basically it's basically a gap year for the Indiana Pacers as an organization. Could they still be a playoff team? Maybe. I mean, they just traded away Miles Turner. I mean, what are the Pacers this year? Could they wind up being a lottery team? Maybe that's not the worst thing. They go and get somebody in the draft next year to pair with Tyrese Haliburton when he returns in the 2026-2027 season, which seems a lifetime away, but as we know in sports, the time flies by. Odds and ends, not the end for Taylor Fritz. No. The American is moving on at Wimbledon to his first semifinal after beating Karen Khachanov in 4 sets. So congratulations to the American Taylor Fritz, his first Wimbledon semifinal. He wins 6-3, 6-4, 1-6, 7-6 over Khachanov. First American to reach the semis at Wimbledon since John Isner did it back in 2018, which just goes to show you how much trouble it's been for Americans to go deep at Wimbledon. He will get the winner of Cam Norrie and Carlos Alcaraz. Feels like Alcaraz there, doesn't it? And then you get Sinner potentially going up. You could wind up with a Sinner semifinal against Djokovic, depending on what happens, on that side of the draw. We'll see how Sinner does against Ben Shelton. But lots of upsets continuing at Wimbledon. By the way, should also be mentioned, congratulations to Aryna Sabalenka, who just gutted it out in a tournament where there's been a ton of upsets. She just gutted it out in 3 sets in her quarterfinal match to move on to the semis at Wimbledon. And it is certainly set up for her in a big way to come away with this major. This surface definitely suits her. Iga Swiatek is still in this field, but Keep an eye on Aryna Sabalenka. She's got to be the favorite right now to win it all at Wimbledon, although I have not looked at the latest odds. I got a second here. I can look at them. Let's see. On the women's side, women's futures, Sabalenka minus 150 to win it all. Swiatek is plus 410, so it tells you where the odds makers' heads are. It's in a similar place to me. That's going to wrap it up for us today. I got to go. Thanks to Sam Yarnell. Thanks to Patrick Creighton. You for watching. We'll see you back here on Wednesday for an all-new Sports Wrap.